Welcome to the 4th branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening. John F. Kennedy said, "The ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all." Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the 4th branch program. First, a warning. This program is not suitable for all audiences. I repeat, the content of this program is not for everyone. To find out if it's suitable to you, answer the following 2 questions. 1. Would you entrust your teenage daughter to a known rapist? Question number 2. Would you have a known pedophile cared for your toddler? Again, question number 1. Would you entrust your teenage daughter to a known rapist? And question number 2, would you have a non-pedophile cared for your toddler? Of course, your time is up. If you had difficulty answering either questions, this program is not for you. If you answer yes to either or both questions, this program is definitely not for you. However, if your answers to both questions are absolutely not, this program is catered to you and you should stick around. We have a very interesting, informative, educational, and even an enlightening program. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Hello again, I am MD and this is the 4th branch program. Today we are going to take a look at a very important piece of news. It is the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh as the next justice on the Supreme Court. Yes, you heard correctly. Brett Kavanaugh has been confirmed as the next Supreme Court justice. Now, for as long as this conversation had started, when Christine Blasey Ford came forward and accused Brett Kavanaugh of sexually assaulting her a few decades ago, it has been a roller coaster. Now, usually in a situation like this, there are two families who are being torn apart by the situation. One, you have Christine Blasey Ford, who was put in the situation of relieving the predicament she was in. And you, of course, have the accused, Brett Kavanaugh, who had to be also on the spotlight defending himself from the accusation. What makes the situation even worse is the fact that it wasn't just in a normal case of sexual assault or sexual harassment. It is usually just the two parties that are involved who are concerned. But unfortunately, any case which involves a famous individual, be it celebrity or politician, such was the case with Brett Kavanaugh, it wasn't just the two parties involved which made the situation worse for both parties, but rather all external parties, those who would benefit and those who would suffer. Such was the case with that particular situation. In a situation like this, there is usually no winner, because no matter which way the wind blows, there is always going to be a victim. Now, it is always hopeful that the person who was victimized the first time would get some sort of relief, seeing that quote-unquote justice has been done, the accused has been caught, and the situation has been resolved within the justice system. But unfortunately, in the case of Christine Blasey Ford and Brett Kavanaugh, it wasn't a clear-cut black and white situation. One, you had Christine, who, according to her report, she spent quite some time not having what you would call a normal life. In fact, one of the story that she brought into the hearing last Thursday was the fact that during a time when they had to expend their personal property, she insisted in having a second door, kind of a back door, almost as if it would be a way for an individual to escape in case a situation goes wrong. In other words, even in her adulthood, she continued to be haunted by the experience she had when she was just 15 years old. Now, in the case of Brett Kavanaugh, now it is difficult to acknowledge or to say whether that particular situation was caused by him or by somebody else, because as of this conversation, there were at least two people who came forward and proposed they were the individual who had assaulted Christine Blasey Ford. Of course, Mrs. Ford had refuted those allegations by those two people. Now, in the case of Brett Kavanaugh, he had something to defend. He is the nominee for the Supreme Court Justice, the individual to replace Kennedy, who had retired or who will be retired as of this coming November. Now, is it that particular circumstance which makes it all the more difficult to find out exactly where the truth lies? Impossible to know, because at this point, the Republican who is in the majority had from the very onset decided that they were not going to honor this allegation by Christine and wanted to plow right through the process. When the accusation became public, one of the senior member of the Judicial Committee, Orrin Hatch, came out, and the first word that came out of his mouth was that that woman is mixed up. And Chuck Grassley, who is the chairman of the Judicial Committee, who already had a date set for a vote for the confirmation, said publicly that the vote will take place regardless. So it was already set in stone that there was not going to be any change regardless of the veracity of the situation. In a normal predicament such as this, the normal course of action would have been to stop everything and have an investigation conducted to either clear the nominee or to simply move on to somebody else. And so the Democrat took upon themselves to expand the idea that the accusation is true, the accusation is genuine. Now, nobody knows for sure, because the two parties could not come to any agreement as to whether one was telling the truth or not. And what makes the matters even worse, at the hearing, Christine Blasey Ford was found to be truthful, so was Brett Kavanaugh. It was a standoff. So it became necessary to call on FBI to conduct an investigation. Unfortunately, however, the White House, as well as the members of the Judicial Committee, which is, of course, run by the Republican, decided that they were going to do everything humanly possible to prevent any damning information from coming forward. As such, FBI was tasked to investigate with a lot of limitation as to what FBI could or could not do. At first, there were only 3 or 4 people they could talk to, and beyond that, that was the end of the story, and they had 1 week to complete that investigation. By any analysis, that was not enough time to conduct a full investigation into a matter of such importance. However, under pressure, the White House was forced to open to the FBI to conduct the investigation and talk to anybody who is relevant to that investigation. The second part of the limitation still stands, that FBI only had 1 week to complete the investigation. However, by Tuesday, when news started coming out that FBI would be writing a report, had completed the investigation, it was quite clear to any casual observer there is something terribly wrong with that picture. Because first, everybody would acknowledge that 1 week was not enough for FBI to conduct a full investigation. And now, 2 days later, FBI completed the investigation. Today, Thursday, the report was filed and provided to the White House, and members of both Republican Party and Democrat Party were alternately going to the White House to review the document that were provided, the report rather, that were provided by FBI. by any analysis, even having not seen the document myself, but by any analysis, it is safe to conclude that Brett Kavanaugh has been confirmed as the next justice to replace Kennedy. How can we possibly know that? We'll be right back when we look at some detail of how far have we come as to this particular case of the Brett Kavanaugh situation, and why we are at the fork. We are today now to put Brett Kavanaugh as the next justice on the Supreme Court. I'll be right back. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. How can we possibly know that was going to be the outcome? Since this conversation has been on the public arena, there was one thing that was quite obvious to us. Republicans were not at all interested in finding out whether it is true or not. From the very beginning, there was a line in the sand. Granted, the particular nomination, this particular nomination, is not the first time we seen that most of anything that happened in Washington happened within party line. It is very rare that you would find a piece of legislation, especially important pieces of legislation, would garner members from both parties. So it was with the $1.5 trillion tax cut. despite the fact that 56% of the population said they didn't want it. So it was with the passage of legislation to kill Obamacare, although most everybody wants to keep it in place, and so on and so forth. So it was predictable that the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh would go forward unless one or a few Republicans were willing to go along with the Democrat to prevent it from happening. Usually, it would not matter, at least to me personally, who is placed on the Supreme Court. I have this trust that the Supreme Court justice, no matter which party he or she belongs to, would, one, follow precedent, and two, would not just want to go with political party in order to deliberate on any particular case. But the Brett Kavanaugh case was very different for me personally, because his reaction to the accusation, not the accusation itself, his reaction to the accusation clearly says that Brett Kavanaugh is not fit to sit on the Supreme Court. 2 years ago, Brett Kavanaugh himself, said a judge must be impartial. Brett Kavanaugh said a judge must not be involved in politics. At the hearing, Brett Kavanaugh did both of those things. It is a very bad precedent to have a justice, someone who has plenty of power. His voice is very important and very powerful, and it will impact not a few individuals, not just the Democrat. It will impact the whole country and for generations to come. As such, to place an individual on the Supreme Court with a political view and who displays a high degree of partisanship is not something which is good for the country. There is a reason the framers of the Constitution wanted 3 separate and equal branches of the government to prevent those kind of things from happening. It is obvious that both the executive branch and the legislative branch are political branches, but the judiciary branch is expected to be completely detached from any political conversation. By any analysis, Brett Kavanaugh is not such an individual. That's why I am saddened to even make the announcement that Brett Kavanaugh has been confirmed. Yes, it is granted that the vote has not happened yet. It would not happen until tomorrow. Because as this conversation, there are Democrat and Republican alternating going to the White House to review the document provided by FBI. But it goes without saying that the FBI investigation was just a cover to please certain members in the Republican parties in order to ensure their vote. As such, what Chuck Grassley wanted from the very onset and what Mitch McConnell wanted from the very onset, if you don't remember what that is, Mitch McConnell at the very onset said to a group of Republicans that there are a few bumps on the road that in regard to the accusation of sexual assault by Christine Blasey Ford. However, he already made up his mind that they are going to vote, confirm Kavanaugh into the Supreme Court. Per his words, they're going to run right through it. Is Mitch McConnell talking to a group of Republicans and at the end get a standing ovation for assuring them that's what's going to happen.
And you're all following the current Supreme Court fight. And you will watch it unfold in the course of the next week. President Trump has nominated a stunningly successful individual. You've watched the fight, you've watched the tactics, but here's what I want to tell you. In the very near future, Judge Kavanaugh will be on the United States Supreme Court.
As you can see, Mitch McConnell received a standing ovation because he assured his audience that in the near future, Brett Kavanaugh will be on the Supreme Court. Now, in this picture, this is the 9 justices who currently serving on the Supreme Court. And the gentleman with the retired sign in front of him, Kennedy, is the one that's going to leave the seat for Brett Kavanaugh. Now, how did Mitch McConnell know for certain that Brett Kavanaugh was going to be confirmed? Number one, the Republicans are in the majority in the Senate. Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Senate, and added to that, there were a lot of back channels, conversation, negotiation being done to ensure that's the case. If you remember during the hearing, Chuck Grassley did everything humanly possible to prevent the FBI investigation from going forward. And even Brett Kavanaugh, when asked many times, in fact, he was asked by every single Democrat during that hearing if he would allow FBI investigation. He never went forward and said yes. Anyone who is not guilty of any such accusation would have been the person who would want that investigation to move forward in order to exonerate you. Brett Kavanaugh took a very different approach. Is he guilty? I don't know, but he shouldn't act as an innocent individual, because way before the FBI investigation, my first thought was, if I were to be Brett Kavanaugh, the first thing that I would have said the minute that I heard about the accusation, that stop everything, have FBI investigate the matter. That did not happen. Instead, Brett Kavanaugh went into a rampage of accusing Democrats of looking for revenge for the Clinton, and so on and so forth. So by all account, the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh into the Supreme Court is indeed a victory for the Republican, but it is a victory not worth celebrating, because while it may help to pass a few or to vote on behalf of a few issues that Republicans are interested in, such as LGBT, Roe versus Wade, what happened beyond that? The country is forever stand now with two justices, Clarence Thomas, the black guy you're looking at on the Supreme Court picture, and Brett Kavanaugh, who is going to replace the gentleman with the retired sign. Both now are going to be on the Supreme Court, both Republican, with the stand to have had sexual assault and sexual harassment in their lives. Is it where the Republican Party is heading? Is it what we are making of the highest court in the land? Is it what the United States is becoming? A court with sexual predators? It is not. The United States of America, people from the world across have traveled to come and stay. As I mentioned in the previous 3 episodes of why people come here in the United States, yes, some for political persecution, some for financial reason, and so on and so forth. But the main and the most important reason people come here and stay in the United States is because of the justice system, and mainly the Supreme Court. A number of countries across the world try to emulate the Supreme Court. Now, we are building a Supreme Court of supreme sexual predators. Welcome to the United States of America. I'll be right back. Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the country. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our business, our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent, it is necessary, it is critical. Our very freedom depends on it.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, The Obama Legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended The Obama Legacy.
A friend actually recommended The Obama Legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
Don't go anywhere. The fourth branch program will return in just a moment.
Now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. I say, now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. My baby's casting spells on me. Action! Wayfair, you got just what I need. Everything from my home, you got it for me. I never see selection quite like this. Every color and size in my mind. They got every single thing on my list. And with 70% off, who knows what I'll find. Wayfair, you got just what I need. Everything from my home, you got it for me. Wayfair and the shipping was free. Now my home's the home I want.
From all of us at Wayfair, find what you need today.
I do thank you for staying with me and hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. I hope to see you again tomorrow around the same time when we will be discussing hopefully a different topic, but most likely we will have to revisit this very important topic, the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation, which will undoubtedly impact the country for a very long time. The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.